And hey everybody, and welcome to the show. So we are beginning with the news that the FBI has detained a person of interest in the Nancy Guthrie case. Now, we're still getting information and reporting on the situation, but it appears that this person is being held about an hour south of Tucson for questioning after being detained during a traffic stop. They've been identified as a subject. Now, earlier tonight, FBI Director Kash Patel said that they are now looking at persons of interest, plural in this case. And by the way, we're going to bring on Brian Entin, who is on his way to the site of where this person was detained. So we're going to bring him on, get more information there. But remember what happened today. This all comes on the heels of those frightening new images that were released by the FBI in this case. 10 days after Today Show star Savannah Guthrie's mom went missing, and 1 day after a supposed ransom deadline passed, even though we've now gotten word there's some activity in this Bitcoin account, we may finally have our first look at the person who took her. Now, the FBI released new pictures and video that was taken from Nancy's doorbell camera showing someone wearing a ski mask breaking into her front door the morning of February 1st. And it is the first major piece of evidence that we have seen since Nancy went missing. And whoever this person is, they appear to be armed. You can see what looks like a gun in a holster at their belt. They were also wearing a backpack, a pair of gloves. So very distinctive items. You wonder whether or not anybody has identified those images, whether anybody has identified those articles of clothing. And by the way, those gloves may suggest that whoever this figure was, they were trying to be very careful in order to avoid leaving fingerprints or DNA evidence, which, by the way, has been a big focus in this case because there seems to have been a lack of forensic evidence at the crime scene. But they were also very careful with the doorbell camera, because in the video, you can see them tampering with it in another attempt to cover their tracks. Although I got to say, there is a question if this person even knew it was there in the first place. Is this sloppy, not really sophisticated? We're going to discuss that. But that camera, we know, was later removed, presumably by the person in the video. So the question now is, how did the FBI get these new images? And I'll give you a preview. From a legal point of view, even if they catch somebody, there does become a question of whether or not that evidence will come in. We'll talk about that too. Plus, when he was released, or when these images were released, FBI Director Kash Patel said, quote, "The video was recovered from residual data located in back-end systems." So that sounds like the FBI's tech teams did a lot of serious work, but it does raise questions about how much these doorbell cameras really record. And since the release of those images, the investigation on the ground has just been heating up. Law enforcement has been going door to door near the home of Annie, this is Nancy's other daughter, apparently asking neighbors if they can search the property for any possible clues. The New York Post is reporting that police are taking DNA samples from hired workers near Nancy's home. This is something we talked about on the show the other night. In cases where you have older victims, the people that worked at those homes, sometimes you have to look into them, right? Are you looking at people exploiting a vulnerable victim? And this could suggest that in spite of wearing a ski mask and gloves, whoever took Nancy ended up leaving some evidence behind. That is the hope. Joining me now live from Arizona is NewsNation's senior national correspondent, Brian Entin, who is in the car on the way to the site where this person of interest, this subject, was detained. Brian, how far away are you, and what can you tell us about the circumstances surrounding this person being detained?
Yeah, hey, Jesse, I think I'm about 15 minutes away. We're still trying to sort through the location, but I know that it is about an hour south of Tucson, very, very, very close to the Mexico border. And right now, all the sheriff's office is confirming is that, and you mentioned that they're calling this person a subject. So they're not saying suspect, and they're not saying person of interest, but they're saying they have a subject detained for questioning, someone that they apparently were able to stop during a traffic stop, although I am told that this person's residence is also very, very close to the border, which is what we're going to check out right now.
So this could be somebody that has information, but is not necessarily involved in the crime, and not necessarily the person that we're seeing on the screen right now. I'm also being told, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I think TMZ reported this person is not a family member, right? Because there's been a lot of discussion about the family, about the Guthrie family. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, according to my sources, this is not a family member. Although, you know, there could be more people involved. Like you said, Kash Patel used plural persons of interest. So just because this person is being questioned, I think we should be careful assuming that this is going to be the only person involved,
Right.
or assuming even that this is necessarily a suspect at this point. We don't know. The other thing I've confirmed, and I hate to say it, and it kind of goes without saying, but that they have not found Nancy. So
Right.
while they have this person who they're questioning, as of right now, they have not located Nancy Guthrie.
And that's an important point. But having said that, earlier today, and this is something that you reported as well, the FBI's elite hostage rescue team was in Tucson. So the first time anybody would hear that, they would say, is there a rescue operation? Is Nancy alive? Do you know more information about why this team was assembled and what the purpose was?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most elite teams within the FBI. I'm told that they are in Tucson. My sense is the FBI felt they were getting closer, and, that's the team that you would want to have on the ground if you need them. If you figure out where Nancy is and you need to move in and you need to rescue her, that's the FBI team that you would want to do it. So I don't know that they were called in because they had an indication of, I don't think it's because they had an indication of where Nancy exactly is. I think it was more just getting ready, feeling like pieces are coming together now that these photos have been released, now that we now know there's this subject who's being questioned. I think they just basically have them on standby.
Right, and that makes sense. Because I'll tell you, Brian, this has been a 180. I mean, you were on the program with me last night. We were talking about this ransom demand. The Bitcoin wallet remained empty. There was an indication maybe this wasn't a real ransom demand. We were kind of starting, I think you said it last night, we're starting from ground zero again. We're starting from the beginning, and then everything escalated today. What have we learned about the Bitcoin wallet? Because I understand there was at least some activity today. I don't know, money being deposited, money being extracted from that Bitcoin wallet, which again is very concerning because if you're talking about a Bitcoin transfer, that is very quick, that's untraceable. What can you tell us about that from today?
So we learned that there was activity in the Bitcoin account, and one of the local stations in Tucson, there's only a couple people that have the account information. It's the people who received the letter, which would be TMZ and a couple of local TV stations in Tucson. One of the local stations in Tucson is reporting that there was about $300 in activity, basically $300 deposited into the Bitcoin account. Which is interesting. I mean, is that part of this investigation? Are they sort of testing the waters? Is there a way by depositing some money, the FBI can, maybe try to triangulate where this Bitcoin account is coming from? Because the $300 number I just thought was interesting when you consider the ransom was $4 and then $6 million. So it's a very different number.
By the way, I want to let everybody know if you're just joining us. So Brian Entin is in a car on his way to the site where this subject has been detained. Again, the Pima County Sheriff's Department, with the assistance from the FBI, has detained an individual. We do not know who this person is. We do not know what their connection is to the Nancy Guthrie case. But apparently they were detained during a traffic stop south of Tucson. Brian is going to be with us for this hour, and I believe we're actually going to be extending past as well into a second hour. So Brian's going to be with us throughout all this as we learn more details. I just want to get one more point, Brian. There was a search today, okay? There was a search of homes near Annie's house earlier. Again, Savannah's sister. This is Nancy's daughter. I was hearing reports they were going door to door. Any inclination about what authorities were trying to get at here? Okay, I think we might have lost Brian, but we're going to make sure to get him back. And if we do, we'll make sure to hear from him. In the meantime, let me go right now, because aside for the obvious plea to the public for help in identifying whoever this person is at Nancy Guthrie's door, the question now is how else might authorities be using this video? It's now the central piece of evidence. So for that, I turn to retired Detective John Bueller. You know who he is. He investigated the disappearance of Laci Peterson. John, thank you so much for coming on as we are in this rapidly developing situation out in Arizona. I got to ask you about the video. When I'm watching the video, the first thing that came to my mind, I'm not sure if you thought the same thing, is, yeah, this seems to be an element of planning, mask, gloves, backpack, gun. Did this guy know that the camera was there, either He had never been to that place before, right? He'd never been to the home, didn't know there was a camera there, or he had known about it, had been to that place, but just didn't know the camera was there because he appears to be sloppily trying to obscure his image, whether using foliage or whatnot. I feel that's a clue. Am I wrong?
No, Jesse, I'm right there with you on that. It seems like bad recon on his part or whoever else is involved in this with him. You would think he would have brought a roll of duct tape and had a piece torn off so he could put it right over the lens of the camera instead of fiddling around like you see him doing in what you're showing right now. Then going out to the entryway outside the arch and getting a piece of local plants to put over it. No hurry on his part. I don't think he seemed to be worried about being detected or anything like that. But the big thing it shows me, the thing that strikes me a lot on this, it's not really necessarily who it's going to identify. It's for at least for the detectives that are working this along with the agents, it's who they can rule out from their suspect pool based on height, for one, because they'll be able to determine that fairly easy. But you can't really tell for sure on the weight. He could be layered up in clothes and things like that. So we can't really tell for sure on that. Didn't look like an experienced gun handler to me based on the way he had that gun carried in the front there. But, hard to tell on that. I just think that it bodes well for showing more than one person involved in this. It's hard to carry out something like this alone. And the fact that you guys are digging around down there on the border is looking even better.
I want to, if we have the image, the close-up shot of this person's face where you see the eyes and you see the makeup of the mouth as well, where you appear to see some facial hair. If we could put that up, that would be great, because here's the part, John. I've seen this in so many cases, okay? By the way, in surveillance footage where you had a lot less, where the person was further away, where it was blurry. Are there people tonight looking at this and saying, wait a minute, I recognize the makeup of that face, but what about the gloves? What about the backpack? What about the sweatshirt? These are distinctive items. Do you think right now, and I believe law enforcement has been getting tips and has been getting a flurry of activity since this footage was released, this feels like distinctive facial features and distinctive articles of clothing?
Yeah, I think this is going to lead to, at least something that's going to be earth-shaking on the case, because there's going to be somebody who sees this that might recognize the clothing itself, or maybe the haunting image of those eyes is something that they could see. Taking a look at his eyebrows, maybe a little bit of the facial hair, and then looking at those gloves. They don't look like common gloves. They could be described as like a lightweight boxing glove that you'd use if you're working a heavy bag or something like that. So anybody who hangs out at a gym, maybe they go, hey, this could be one of those guys that comes in every Thursday. And then over and above that, if they connect the dots and go, well, we haven't seen Joe in the last week. He's been gone. It's very strange that he'd be gone. Those are the kind of tips that they can use to develop a solid suspect and attempt to locate him.
And I want to go back to where Brian Entin is. Again, just for if anybody's joining us, Brian Entin, NewsNation national senior correspondent, on his way to where there was this subject detained. Now, we do not know who this person was. But John, explain to me, people watching this now, what they should expect. It's different than saying, we caught the person who's in this video, we caught the suspect. When they say a subject, right, during a traffic stop, what should we be expecting here?
Well, it's really difficult to draw a concrete conclusion on that because they've been very skilled at releasing only a little bit of information at specific times in the investigation. So I got to, tip my hat to them on that.
Sure.
But if you look at it just from a broad spectrum, it might be somebody who's associated with the people that are involved in the crime. And this is the type of guy you want to grab up right away if you don't have a location on who the ringleader is, because they could bring him in and a skilled investigator, interrogator is going to be able to present him with a variety of different options to save himself, become a witness instead of a co-responsible, roll over, collect a reward, somehow lead them to the real guy that was involved in this, a ringleader, and hopefully recover Nancy unharmed.
During a traffic stop, does that mean there was something about the car that they noticed? And I don't know if that means that was a car that was spotted on surveillance footage in multiple locations. I can't tell you if it connects back to the person we're seeing in this footage, but if someone stopped during a traffic stop, what would be the circumstances around that?
Well, possibly they were already surveilling the guy. They might have already had an idea who he was and associated with somebody. Again, they're not letting too much out on this, which is really a good idea. It's not great for television because it doesn't give us much to work with. But when it comes to actually working the case, they keep things close like that, and that protects the case when it comes time to go to court. But if they're making a car stop on the guy, unless it was a random stop, and they may have been surveilling him for a period of time.
By the way, going back to this footage, I can't get over it. I've been asked a number of times today. I'm curious your perspective. Obviously, technology has changed. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Committing a crime in 2026 is very different than committing a crime in 2000 or 2002, whatever it might be. Facial recognition technology, AI tools. Have you heard anything? Like, let's say, for example, you take a still image of the face. We got the fourth image all the way there on the right. Is there any way there's technology that can identify somebody from that law enforcement uses?
Well, I would think if anybody has it, it would be the FBI. I remember taking a case to them in the mid-90s at their video lab, and they did an enhancement for me on a murder. And with this type of image, which is actually pretty clear right now when you look at it, the skill and the technology that they have back there, if anybody could clean this up and determine who this could possibly be, it would seem to me it would be the FBI.
John, stay with us. We got Jake Green with us, who's a digital forensics expert, the technical operations manager at Invista Forensics. Jake, thanks so much for coming on. Not talking AI just yet today like we did last week. I have to ask you, okay, there is a part about that.
I kind of like to go before the second hour. I got an early morning tomorrow. I can hang for a little bit if you like.
Okay, John. Okay, that's good. Just stand by for a couple more minutes. If something happens, we'll make sure to jump by. I appreciate that. But Jake, let me just go to you real quick. There's a question about how they got this images, these videos, after all these days. Now, I know there was a question about whether Nancy, she didn't have a subscription, so whether or not the Nest camera footage wasn't properly stored, and if authorities had to then go to Google. What do you make of this? Why did it take so long to get this?
So a few different reasons. The first major reason is if she didn't have an active subscription, typically the only retention period or the look back period on that camera is going to be 3 hours. So 3 hours and a minute later, the video is gone from that system. What happened in this case is law enforcement has gone to Google and gone to Nest and said, here's legal process, here's exigent circumstances. We need assistance in either preserving or pulling data that lives on your servers. And so from here, we know now that even though it's not showing on the consumer's end of the application or the video, it still exists in the cloud. And this is just another example of the app is not the evidence. All the cloud data is.
You think there's more footage or more images that we just don't know about yet that they could be able to recover?
Honestly, if you think about all the other homes in the area, if this guy's walking down the street, if they don't have 30-day subscriptions, law enforcement could go back and pull those as well.
John, by the way, let me just go back to you before you. I know you have to leave soon. I know it's late, but I do want to ask you. It's always interesting when law enforcement releases information about somebody because on one hand, the public is an incredible tool. We talked about it so much, right? They might be able to see something about this guy and alert authorities. On the other hand, does it tip the suspect off? Does it tip this person off? Does the world close? Does that create a dangerous environment?
I don't know if it really brings much more danger to it. It might make him make mistakes because he might start to panic. He might think that he had the wool pull over everybody's eyes, and he doesn't. And so now if he sees this out here and he's worried about people identifying him, it might make him make some missteps or some blunders that ordinarily he wouldn't do.
Well, I hope you're right. And I'll tell you what, on that, great way to end, John. Thank you so much. Appreciate you taking the time and staying up late with us, and great work as always. Jake, I want you to stick with me on this. As we talk about it, you tell me, you take this footage, you take these images, do you know of any technology, you're the AI expert, any technology that can be used to identify this person?
So the hardest part here is going to be the distance of the minutia between the distance of the eyes. Can we tell for sure where the nose is within this ski mask? I think the more important piece is to look at here, and I saw on social media earlier, social media has already identified that backpack. So they know where it came from. I think it was a Walmart store. They're going to be able to track down all the sales of that backpack. And it looks like it's in pretty good condition. So perhaps they bought it the week prior or the day prior. That is going to be much easier for law enforcement to do than try to guess at the distance between the eyes in video like this.
And that's an important piece of evidence, and that's an important point. There are so many times in cases like this where people don't take something that they have existing, whether it's articles of clothing or supplies, they buy it. they buy it in anticipation of a crime. That also depends upon, how much they were planning it in advance. But also, as we talked about before, if they're going to wear a distinctive sweatshirt and they're concerned that someone might see it, they may be like, that's not something that I'm going to wear. It might be caught on camera. So they buy articles of clothing or items that are new. But again, the catch-22, like you said, is you go back to the purchase records. And if they believe that this person is living in Tucson or in the area, they can look at all the Walmarts if, in fact, that's where this comes from. Talk to me about, the clarity of this. Is there any way to amplify it, whether or not to change the color, whether or not to, there was a flashlight there and it kind of blurs out the eyes. Is there any way to clarify that at all?
So when we deal with infrared video like this is the hardest to enhance. If we had perfect lighting, daytime, middle of the day, that is very good quality for us to deal with. When we have this grayscale, this is much more difficult to try to enhance. I wouldn't expect, you can look at the image there, that is crystal clear. Almost looks like you can see potentially some stitch patterns within the glove. But I don't think you're gonna get any clearer than this.
Yeah. So Jake, maybe you could stick around. We'll find out in the break. My producers will talk to you. Rapidly developing situation. We're going to stay on this. Our plan is actually to stay on this for the next hour and a half. Again, a person has been detained in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. We're kind of understanding what that means, how this is connected. Brian Entin is on his way there. But when we come back, got a special guest, criminal defense attorney Arthur Aidala. You know why? Not only do I love Arthur, but I am seeing a plethora of legal issues that could be problematic even if there is an arrest. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to our continuing coverage of the Nancy Guthrie disappearance. This is a rapidly developing situation out of Arizona. I want to go live right now to Brian Entin, who has been tracking this subject that has been detained in connection with this case. Brian, I understand you just arrived at the spot. I see a flurry of activity outside. What's going on?
Yeah, Jesse, I just got here. This is Rio Rico, Arizona. So this is 1 hour south of where Nancy lives in Tucson, very, very close to the Mexico border, just like a stone's throw away. And what I can show you right here, we just got here, but there is a police presence. This is apparently where the traffic stop happened. And down this road here, and it's so dark, they've got it all, you can see there's police tape. They've got it all closed off, but down the road here is where we're told they are about to execute a search warrant at this person's house. We don't know a name. They are not calling this person a suspect or person of interest, only a subject who has been detained for questioning. But we've been able to confirm since we got here that there is a search warrant that they are about to execute at this person's house, which is right down the road here. Again, very, very close to the Mexico border, about an hour from Nancy Guthrie's house.
So a couple of points there. Do you know if this person was stopped, let's say, right outside their home, and that's where the stop happened? And B, do you see teams mobilizing right now?
So it's hard for me to see. They've got us down the block. So let me just look. It's hard for me to see if any teams are mobilizing from here. We were told that it's going to happen soon and it's imminent. It does seem that the traffic stop happened right near the person's house, because I've confirmed that the person's address is on this street. So the traffic stop happened very, very close to where they live.
Do you see an FBI presence there?
Not where I am, because it looks like they've got the sheriff's deputies who have the road closed here. I think the FBI would be farther in where they're not allowing the media, but they are here. We have seen the FBI here, so we know for sure that they're here.
Now, Brian, again, I'm going to throw this at you. I know you just got to the scene, but with Kash Patel, his earlier statement saying there might be persons of interest, did you have hear anything about whether multiple people were detained or whether it was just one individual?
No, it's just one individual detained here, from what I've been told from the sources that I've been talking to. And then also the official Pima County release that came out also said that it's just one subject who's been detained right now. Whether this is just the beginning, though, I mean, if this was a whole plot and there were multiple people involved, we could see more people involved at some point. But right now, we're being told it's just one person.
And any identifying information about this person?
No identifying information. Just that I can tell you that it's not from my sources. It's not a family member of Nancy Guthrie's. And I think I told you this earlier, but I've also confirmed that they have not found Nancy Guthrie. So it's not like they showed up here and were able to locate Nancy Guthrie or anything like that.
And to be clear, again, this could be somebody who has information in this case. It's not like if people are tuning in, this is necessarily the person that was on that Nest camera footage. What is the vibe that you're getting from law enforcement? Is there a sense of urgency? Is there a sense of that they're a bit concerned about the situation they're approaching in? If you can kind of walk us through what you're seeing right now from law enforcement.
Yeah, it's so dark. I want to make sure you can see, Jesse, but this is sort of the end of the road here. It's Camino Augusto Road. So this is where the sheriff has everything closed. And then over here, you can see there's this crime scene tape. And then down the road here, like where you see the, you can see there's some lights that the car front headlights that turned on. Down the road is where the house is, where this subject lives. And so, you know what, let me walk over here really quickly, Jesse.
Yeah.
And just see, there's a man over here. The service isn't great. And I know it's so dark, but let me see if he might know anything. 1 second.
No, that's okay. And just I'll let the audience know. So Brian right now is walking towards the scene where they're about to execute a search warrant in connection with the person that was detained.
Yeah. Did you see anything happen here? No. Do you mind? Let me just talk to you real quick, if you don't mind. I'm going to come over to you. Sorry. What happened?
They were just standing there. I thought they were ICE.
You thought they were ICE?
Yeah.
Did you see anyone get arrested?
No, agents walking back and forth from the car in the house.
Where is the house? Because they're keeping us back. Is it down the street here? 3 houses down? Okay. Did you know that this was connected to the Nancy Guthrie disappearance? No? Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry, you can't really hear him too well, but basically he said that he saw the federal agents arrive, didn't know that they were connected to the Nancy Guthrie investigation, and that the house that they're searching is about 3 houses down from where we're standing right now.
And just to be clear, because it was a little hard, did he indicate whose house it was, or is there anybody out there that can indicate that?
I mean, do you know who lives there by any chance? No, you don't. Okay, yeah, he doesn't know, Jesse. He doesn't know who lives there.
And in all fairness, I don't know that individual. He might not just want to reveal that information at that time. Are you seeing people coming out right now? Because there's, again, a visible presence as they're about to execute a search warrant. Are you seeing people coming out? And by the way, just in case you know, Brian, do you know when they plan to execute that search warrant? Did they give you an idea?
We were told that the search warrant was being executed soon, right? Well, yeah, soon. Soon was what we heard. And no, there's not a lot. I mean, we raced here. There's really not a lot of people out here. It's just kind of a dark like part of the town here, Rio Rico, very close to the border. But I am told that the sheriff, so the Pima County sheriff, was here, which is interesting, but has since left.
You're talking about Chris Nanos, right?
That's
correct?
Right.
So yes. That's interesting, because you and I both talked about that, about whether or not the Pima County Sheriff's Department kind of took a step back and the FBI took a step forward. And, Chris Nanos was at a basketball game this weekend when the Guthrie family had released that second tape. Just walk us through, for people who don't know, have you seen increased involvement from the Pima County Sheriff's Office, or has it really been the FBI has been taking the lead in this, which, by the way, they have the resources and they have the experience to do in these kinds of kidnapping situations?
It's the FBI mostly, it seems now, Jesse. Although we did see sheriff's deputies at Annie Guthrie's house over the weekend, and there are definitely sheriff's deputies here. And I'm told as of this afternoon, the sheriff's office was still technically the lead on the case, and they would have to hand it over fully to the FBI. And technically, they are still in control. Although it seems the FBI has been handling more lately. I mean, like the searches today at Annie Guthrie's were all FBI, and it's been the FBI we know that's been communicating with the Guthrie family, helping them make their videos, that kind of thing. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Brian is on scene. As soon as we get word of potential movement in this search warrant, again, of somebody, a subject connected to the Nancy Guthrie situation, we're going to make sure to go back live to Brian Entin, who, by the way,
Great racing over there. Amazing work reporting on this from the very beginning, Brian. So stay with us. We're going to take a break. When I come back, I got Arthur Aidala here. We're going to talk about the legal issues that are happening right now behind the scenes. Stay with us here on Jesse Weber Live, only on NewsNation. Okay, welcome back to our breaking news coverage in the Nancy Guthrie investigation. Things are heating up very rapidly. We were just live with Brian Entin, who is in Rio Rico, Arizona. Okay, so this is about an hour away from Nancy Guthrie's house, and they have detained a subject. And as we heard from Brian Entin, and we're going to go back to him, they are planning to execute a search warrant at this person's house. And reading from the Pima County Sheriff's Department, this was through assistance by the FBI's evidence response team. They believe that this search warrant, this operation, is expected to last several hours. We're going to continue to monitor this. If anything happens live, we will make sure to go back to Brian Entin, who's on the ground there. I'm here, though, right now with criminal defense attorney Arthur Aidala, making his debut on Jesse Weber Live. Good to see you.
Only for you, young
Yeah,
man.
we got to get you a mug. All right, let me ask you.
It would be nice.
It would be
It's
nice.
The least I can get it. It's 11:40 at night.
It's
but
a
that's
rapidly
okay.
developing situation.
It's
Okay. Let me ask you this. You, in the break, were telling me about what we should be thinking about this person, right? It's not just somebody who's a witness or has some information. Why?
Well, in the United States of America, if you're going to detain someone, right, that means they can't leave. They can't just be like, "No, sorry, officer, I don't want to talk to you." There are certain steps that the analysis that the cops have to do, or the detective has to do, or an FBI agent has to do. And usually it has to rise to the fact that they think some sort of criminal activity is afoot. That's like the legal term, like something that you're involved in has to do with a crime, so you can't go. If they thought you were just a witness, and you were like, "Hey, yes, I did see the homicide. I'm not talking to you." They know you didn't commit the homicide. They're gonna let you go. So obviously, I know we're gingerly talking about persons of subject, or they're not. They're people of interest. There's obviously. They have probable cause to hold on to this person.
Why are they so careful about that? Why do they say it's a subject?
There's lawsuits, right? So hypothetically, the name comes out, and we have John. We had John Doe all day, and we think John Doe's a suspect. I believe the brother-in-law has already threatened a lawsuit because people have said, "Oh, he's a person of interest," or "I think he did it." So it's all about civil lawyers.
Well, what does a subject mean? If we're saying subject,
okay. So when you call the United States Attorney's Office as a defense attorney and say, "Yes, my client John Doe, what are you looking at him as?" and they say he's a subject, that means we don't know. Sometimes they'll say they're just a witness, you have nothing to worry about. Other times they'll say he's a target, that's who we're going after. A subject is we're figuring it out. We don't know. You don't treat him like he's just a witness and he's got no problems, but he's not exactly a target yet. But let's go to the next step. They have a warrant. Now, someone has gone to a judge in that jurisdiction and says, "We are going to violate this person's rights, and we're going to go into their house without their permission, and we're going to go look through their stuff." And they have to explain to a judge why they're doing that, what the probable cause is, where they're getting that information from. Why do they think that? Is it something they saw? Is it something they heard? Is there a confidential informant who called them and said, "Listen, I know this person. If you go into the brown box on their counter, you're going to find the same gun that you see in the holster that you see in the video in there." There's got to be a degree of specificity of it, and a judge has to say, "Okay, I'm allowing you to violate this individual, this United States citizen's rights, and you're just going to go into his house without his or her right." Permission.
And that makes sense in terms of the timeline, because while we don't know the exact time that this person was detained, and now it seems like maybe they were detained near their house based on the reporting from Brian, to go to a judge and write up a warrant and get these details, it might have taken a bit of time. They say this operation is going to last several hours. What can we expect in terms of what we will see in a search warrant operation like this?
Well, typically, they're supposed to be telling the judge something that they're looking for, and why they're looking for that. Something that's reliable. So they can't just be like, "Judge, we think this guy did something and we just want to go check out his house." It's got to be a little bit more. We think he has the weapons. We think there's the clothing in there. We think there's a receipt for clothing. We think there's a cell phone in there that we need to get. So it can't just be, we want to go look in the house for whatever we want. It's got to be a little bit more than that. And Jesse, it's interesting. a case of this high-profile nature, it kind of cuts both ways. There's pressure on the FBI and judges to do things the right way, and there's also so much pressure to just get it done.
Arthur, stand by. We got Brian Entin, some activity outside that house. Brian, you're live. What's going on? Okay, Brian, we can't hear you right now. We're going to work on the audio. As soon as we get it back, we'll make sure to go to you. I see you were interviewing somebody. So, Brian Entin, stand by. Going back to you as we're looking at this, I just wanted to focus on something. We're not saying that whoever this person is being detained is that guy, right? The guy was, but is it possible? Is it possible that they're saying it's a subject, it's somebody, it could potentially be this person?
Absolutely. It could be that person or someone who could lead them to that person or someone who's got evidence about anything that's going on, anything that has to do with this. It could be someone who saw the Ring doorbell get thrown in the water or thrown in their house or something along those lines. But it can't just be, we got a hunch, let's go knock down their door at whatever time it is over there in Arizona.
Okay, I'm really glad to have you for another reason. I've been talking about it throughout the course of the last 2 weeks. It's not just about the investigation, it's how investigators collect and preserve the evidence for a future criminal case. You've been following this. If they even make an arrest tonight or they make an arrest tomorrow, whatever it might be, there's been a lot of talk about that crime scene, whether or not there was contamination, whether or not it was a sloppy investigation. I know that everybody talks about that, but there have been questions here. From a criminal defense point of view, do you see issues here?
Well, you know, from a criminal defense point of view, you better find some issues there because otherwise you're just walking your client into a conviction. You know, it is interesting that this tape just came out, and I did learn things on your show about how, even if you don't have the subscription to the doorbell, it's written over after 3 hours. I was shocked that it's taken so long for them to get it, but I could understand there are millions of these things, but that tape will be admissible. They don't need a warrant to get that tape. Google could just turn that over. If it was Google, I believe it was Google.
Google Nest, yeah, right.
They could just turn that over, so they don't need to go to a judge to get that because Google is not the subject. Google's not the target. Whoever it is they're getting the warrant against, that person could easily say, sure, go into my house, search for anything you want. You only need a warrant if someone is stopping you from doing that. Now, under these circumstances, if I'm an FBI agent, I'm writing something out and having him sign it in front of 3 witnesses saying you're allowed to go in my house, but you don't need a warrant if he's giving you access to the house. But if you're like, no, you're not going to my house, then you got to go to the judge, wake up the judge, or find the judge on duty and get them to sign off on the warrant.
Going back to Nancy's house, though, there's been a lot of talk about they had the crime scene, they closed the crime scene, they let people in. I mean, Brian Entin was on the property. This is where he saw the blood stains, right? I mean, and then they close it off again. There was a guy delivering pizza today. There was a pizza delivery guy who was able to go in. Wait, so, hold on. We got Brian Entin back. Brian, you're up.
Okay, I'm outside the house that is now being searched where this subject lived, we're told. There was a traffic stop close by. This is the subject being questioned in the Nancy Guthrie investigation. This is Josephina. Yes. This is her house, and the subject is her son-in-law.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah.
Tell me how this happened. Where was he when he was detained?
My daughter and him and the kids, my grandkids, were doing DoorDash when they got stopped here, and I don't know what kind of questions they asked them. But when we got home, I wasn't at home. When we got home, we found out that they took my son out. They went inside, they busted the doors from my house. They went inside and took my son to the living room and had him handcuffed and then got him outside. That's when the time that we got home. And we asked what was going on, and they couldn't say anything. And they said, and I asked them to have a search warrant to go in my house. And they said, we don't need a search warrant. We could go do that if we want to. So I told them, yeah, I think you need a search warrant. Why did you break my door? You took my son the wrong way. I mean, you hurt him. His wrists were with the handcuffs.
Let me ask you, were you familiar with the Nancy Guthrie case? Had you seen that she was missing?
Like I told you, I saw it on Facebook, but since I don't know her, I didn't read what was going on their story.
Did they take electronic devices at all? Did they take your
I
phone?
don't have anything. They took
your
my phone.
They
took my phone, my husband's phone, my daughter's phone, my grandkid's phone, and my son-in-law's phone.
Let me show you these pictures really quick, Josefina, of, just give me a second, I gotta pull them up on my phone. These are the pictures from outside Nancy Guthrie's house. This is who they're looking for. Do the eyes look like your son-in-law at all?
No, not at all.
Do you see the mouth?
Yeah, no. He doesn't look that at all.
Brian, can you ask what her son-in-law's
what's
name
his
is?
name?
It's Carlos. Carlos Palazuelos.
Sorry, what's his name?
Carlos.
Carlos.
Yes.
And what's his last name?
Palazuelos.
Okay.
I don't know, yeah. So.
And does he work in Tucson? Would he ever be in Tucson?
He's in Tucson all week. He works delivering boxes for like UPS and he works with a company. And I told him you can call the company that he works there and verify that he's working. And
is your daughter also detained?
No, they just let my daughter and my grandkids go.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Josefina.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the latest here, Jesse. They took her phone too,
Yeah,
her husband's phone, and her daughter's phone, and obviously her son-in-law's phone, and they are searching her house right now. So this is sort of an unfolding situation.
And I'll get into this with Arthur, the fact that they didn't have a search warrant, according to her. Do you know where Carlos is right now, Brian?
Do we know where Carlos is right now?
No, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with him. They took my phone. I can't reach with nobody.
Yeah, we think he's being questioned. But...
Yeah, they already asked us a lot of questions about him. We told, like I said, I have nothing to hide. You can go in my house. You can search anything you want. There's nothing to hide. I don't know the lady. I don't know about the lady. I saw her on Facebook, but like I told you.
Was he ever violent? Any violence with Carlos?
No, he's a good guy.
Criminal history that you know of?
None of it.
No? Okay.
Is he from Tucson?
Brian,
yeah, so I mean, that's sort of the situation. She's obviously in shock. Yeah.
Did you show her photos of the person outside of Nancy Guthrie's house? The images, the mask, the backpack? Did she identify any of those items of clothing? And nothing. She doesn't see anything in that.
I did, and let me show you again. Have you seen these photos?
Yeah, the detective showed it to me right now.
And the backpack? Does the backpack
He
look
doesn't
familiar?
have a backpack. He doesn't wear backpacks. He doesn't like either that. I don't know what gloves or something like that. I don't know
yeah,
what they're
gloves. You see the boots?
Yeah.
Let me get you a
no,
closer picture. You see this here? Look at look at the eyebrows. The eyebrows are very specific. You see how they're very manicured?
No, that's not him. Nope. I can assure you it's not him.
Okay.
No, I can assure you. Like I told you, if I had my phone, I would show you a picture of him.
Okay.
I can show you.
Yeah, she wants to show me a picture, but she doesn't have her phone. But she seems very sure. I mean, it's hard to tell with the mask, but but we've said if you knew the person, you would be able to recognize them.
But Brian, if you don't mind asking her, does she know where he was January 31st, February 1st?
Do you know where he was January 31st? You know when this happened? It would have been last Saturday night.
Well, he works from Monday through Friday. He's home Friday. He stays home Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Goes back to work on Monday. So on the weekends, he stays at my house. He doesn't go nowhere. He stays where.
So was he at your house last Saturday?
Yeah, he was here at my house.
Are you positive?
Yeah, I'm positive. He was here at my house.
Because this would have happened late Saturday and early into Sunday morning, like around 2 a.m. on Sunday.
He's always here for his kids on the weekend.
Could he have left in the night?
Oh, no.
No.
I'm pretty sure. He has his van that work. He uses the van that's outside.
A van?
A van. It's broken. It's not working.
How long has it been broken?
Well, it broke down on Friday afternoon.
This past Friday?
Yeah, this Friday, huh?
So a couple of days ago Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the van was pulled here, and he's been here. He's been going with my daughter door dashing with the kids, his kids, and he's been home.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're sure he was home last weekend?
Yeah, he's
in
been
the middle
home.
of the night?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So you heard that? That's what she said, Jesse. So she says she says that he was home. She can't look at it on her phone. I mean, they took all the electronic devices, which would make sense. And so she's just sort of waiting out here to see when she's going to be able to go back to the house.
And Brian, I mean,
told me to go
excellent
somewhere
job
else, 'cause
asking
maybe
questions
I wouldn't
about
go
this.
into my house.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if she was saying anything else, Brian. I apologize.
No, she was just saying what were you saying? They told you to go stay somewhere else tonight?
Yeah, maybe to stay somewhere else because I'm not going home to my house anymore tonight.
Okay. Yeah, she's basically, they've told her that, I guess this search warrant may go on all night long. So she's been told she probably won't be able to get back home tonight.
And Brian, what are you seeing? Again, going back to this, have you seen a mobilization? Have you seen them about to execute the search warrant? Again, going back to the idea, do you see the FBI there at all?
So back out here along the road, Jesse, you've got the sheriff's deputies. Thank you, Joseph. You can go. Thank you so much. Out here on the road, we'll show you, the sheriff's deputies are out here blocking the road. This is Pima County. The sheriff was out here earlier, which is interesting, the sheriff himself. And again, we're about an hour from Tucson. We're about an hour from where Nancy Guthrie lives, and we're very close to the border with Mexico. So sheriff is out here, but you have to go down the street, which they have closed off, about 3 houses in. And that is where she lives. That is where the search warrant is happening now. And the FBI is there. We've confirmed that the FBI is on scene, Jesse.
And Brian, look, I really appreciate you kind of pressing her on some of those points. You've been covering this from the very beginning. You've indicated you're not leaving until this gets resolved. What did you make of her statements regarding her son-in-law's connection to all this?
I mean, look, I think it's early to say. I mean, would she really know if he left in the middle of the night? I don't know. The van stood out to me because there were reports of a van in the neighborhood. So we're just going to have to see. I mean, look, they're only calling this person a subject right now. They've been careful not to say person of interest or suspect. So, we have to be fair about the whole thing. I mean, this could just be someone that they're questioning at this point. This could be someone unrelated. We don't know. We just don't know. But there's a huge police presence, and the FBI is here, and they're doing a search warrant. So something is going on.
Brian, stand by. I just want to bring in Arthur Idal on this because you were listening to Josefina say this about, according to her,
there's so much stuff here.
Tell me what you took away from it.
All right, I took away, he's in handcuffs. She said they took him away in handcuffs. So that's not a person of interest anymore, right? You don't just put someone in handcuffs, number one. Number two, she's like, they don't need a warrant. It's my house. They could go in at any time they want. Now, but she also said, they took my phone. She didn't say I gave them I gave them my phone. They took my phone. You do need a warrant for that, unless there's like something that's happening in the moment. This is 20 days, whatever, 10 days old now. Yes, if this woman, Josefina, was in the middle of a drug sale and they saw her texting about drugs, yes, they could grab her phone. But something like this, at this point, Jesse, this is a long-term investigation. This isn't like exigent circumstances regarding the crime.
And if it was that serious, they wouldn't have let her speak to Brian.
Of course not, exactly. And she's not, but it's probably going to be irrelevant. In other words, I doubt there's anything on Josefina's phone that's going to try to be admitted into evidence. But, and I know this is not exactly the subject matter, but since Brian did such an unbelievable job just now speaking with her, look at the position this woman's in. It's 10 o'clock at night. She's outside. She's got no phone. She's got no place to sleep. So what is she going to do, just ring her neighbor? I mean, come on, this is an older woman. Give her some housing, give her your phone, an FBI agent or a police officer or a sheriff. So, I mean, this is real. Brian just did an unbelievable job. I mean, this is real time. This woman's in shock. Her son-in-law, handcuffs, warrants. The funny part is, unless there's something specific in the house that she won't give him access to, they don't need a warrant. She's now on national television, on Jesse Weber's show, saying, they can go in my house. I have nothing to hide. That's enough. So that warrant, you can just rip it up. You don't need the warrant anymore unless there's a safe in the house. And she didn't say, well, you could go in the safe and open up the safe. So, there's a ton of legal. This is like a law school class right there with what just took place, with everything going on.
And we booked you without even knowing this was going to happen. Do we still have Brian? If so, I just want to ask him a quick question. If Brian's still on the scene. Brian, let me just ask you something. If I'm reporting that this is now near the border, and we've been talking about this, there has been a lot of discussion about whether Border Patrol has been part of this investigation. There's been talk about, are the cartels involved? Is this an international element? After just speaking to Josefina where you are, how does that factor into all this?
Well, we're very close to the border. I mean, I'd have to look on my phone, but the border is right. I think it's like a mile away or something. And I want to ask Josefina one more question when she's done talking, because one thing I forgot to ask Jesse is about the Bitcoin. And I'm curious if she knows about Bitcoin or if her son-in-law, ever used Bitcoin. So I'm going to jump in with her in a second.
Sure.
But Border Patrol has been involved. I mean, it's close to the border. It's interesting. A lot of people thought this may end up having a Mexico connection, and we're so close here. to the border. But people I interviewed earlier said if this was cartel or something, it would have been more organized. The person would have just pulled the camera, not just try to put grass up over the lens, that kind of thing. That they felt like this was more amateur than typical cartel jobs that happen in this area.
And I just want to go back real quick as we talk about this, because, again, just to understand where we're at right now, this is a rapidly developing situation. We have Brian Entin on the ground in Rio Rico. They are executing a search warrant on this subject. He had just spoken to his mother-in-law, this individual, Carlos. I think we're still trying to confirm the last name at this point. And Brian, again, just for anybody knowing, do you know how long this operation is going to last?
Yeah, and let me I just got Josefina back. There's one thing I forgot to ask you. A big part of this has been Bitcoin. The ransom that they were asking for to get Nancy Guthrie back was for Bitcoin. Does your son-in-law, has he ever talked about Bitcoin?
No, nothing. They don't have like I was telling the detective, they're waiting for their taxes to make so they can get money and rent an apartment. They don't have any money to rent. They're staying with us because they got evicted from the home.
They're waiting for their tax refund, you're saying?
Yeah.
But did Bitcoin ever come up?
Oh, no. My daughter's doing DoorDash to get money.
Had you ever heard of Bitcoin?
No.
No? Jesse or Arthur, do you guys have any more questions before I let Josefina go?
You tell me, Arthur. The floor is yours. I've been asking a ton of questions.
No, I mean, Brian, you've done an outstanding job. Josefina, I hope she can just find a place to stay tonight and sleep tonight, because it seems like she doesn't have much to do with this whatsoever.
Yeah. No, Brian,
They're just saying they
reporting.
hope that you find a good place to stay tonight. So thank you, Josefina.
I don't think I'll be leaving my house.
Okay, I understand.
Right,
Yeah, I just
right.
wanted to ask about the Bitcoin, Jesse, because that popped into my head afterwards.
So I just want to reset for everybody who's just joining us, okay? Right now, live on NewsNation, we have Brian Entin, who is in Rio Rico, okay? Because there was reporting of a subject being detained in connection with the Nancy Guthrie disappearance. There is a search warrant that is about to be executed at this property. We have just spoken, Brian just spoke to the mother-in-law of this subject. He has been identified as Carlos Palazuelos. Again, we still don't know what his connection to this case is. After speaking to Josefina, very few details. And we even asked whether or not, or where he was on January 31st and February 1st when Nancy Guthrie disappeared. Basically said he was at the home, but also discussed about his van. And we're still trying to piece together the details of this, as this is a joint operation between the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Office. And this is all on the heels of what happened today, where the FBI released these images and these videos of a masked individual outside of Nancy Guthrie's home, these chilling footage. We cannot say at this point whether or not the person being detained, Carlos Palazuelos, is this individual. We showed the photos, we showed these images to Josefina. She said it's not him. She indicated that none of his clothing matched anything. But again, this is her account. So we're still trying to work on the details here. As soon as we understand when this search warrant is being executed, we will go back live to Brian Entin. I'm also here with criminal defense attorney Arthur Aidala as we're trying to break this down. No, Arthur, again, this search warrant's going to take some time. When will we get information about what they find?
Well, it's going to depend on the FBI. And, usually the FBI does take over this part of things, especially when there's this much attention on them. But come on, Jesse, you've covered more cases maybe than I have. DoorDash drivers they've been evicted from their home. They're waiting for their tax refund to rent an apartment. I mean, they do not sound like masterminds who are going to go after, anybody, let alone someone of Savannah Guthrie's mother and get this international. I mean, maybe there are some clues here, but if I'm betting $20, I don't think this individual, Carlos, is the person that we're watching in that video.
Okay, I want to bring on right now private investigator Steve Fisher. Steve, thanks so much for taking the time to jump on this. You have been quite active on social media regarding this, but you haven't been had an opportunity yet to view this, to see the interview that Brian just did. We're in the heels of this search warrant being executed. What is your takeaways from what we're seeing right now in real time?
Actually, I saw what Brian talked to her. She seemed very certain when he showed the surveillance footage that wasn't him, and she made a remark. She's like, the FBI showed it to me also, so she'd already seen it, and she seems very confident it's on him. And the person is distinctive when you look at the close-up. So, either she, yeah, so I tend, I'll be honest with you, I tend to believe her that at least this person's not, the person in surveillance is not him.
And to be clear, she was like, if I had my phone, but it was obtained by authorities, it was taken away by authorities. She goes, if I had my phone, I'd show you a picture of him right now. We'll try to work on finding a picture of him as well, Carlos Palazuelos. And it was interesting, by the way, when Brian first got to the scene, I think Brian got there before anybody else because it's Brian Entin. He got there, by the way, just so you know, he jumped on with his iPhone. He didn't even wait for the camera operator. He jumped there. He spoke to another individual in the neighborhood. They were concerned that this was an ICE operation. But clearly, this is a search warrant conducted in connection with the Nancy Guthrie disappearance. We don't have more details yet. We're hoping to get more details. But for Steve, for people who don't know, you were on X all day today expressing your concerns about what you're seeing, whether or not it was these images, but also, and we talked about this with Brian, the searches that were being conducted in Nancy's neighborhood, and also, by the way, Annie's neighborhood, her daughter's house. What were your main concerns?
Well, it just seems like, it seemed like they didn't really have much to go on at the beginning, but then in these, then starting yesterday, I should say, as we were ramping up into that deadline on the Bitcoin, things accelerated. And then Savannah's message I felt was very different yesterday, the one that she put out. She was by herself for one, and it did not feel scripted at all. And it felt like she kind of disconnected from maybe the law enforcement message. And then, of course, we find out today that it ends up you can recover footage that you don't have a subscription to from Nest, and that changes everything. And I think now things are going to be in hyperdrive now because I think there's going to be people that know this person that they're going to be able to tell it's him because there's some distinctive features. So I think but with this search warrant situation with him being pulled over at a traffic stop, it also makes it appear that they were looking for a particular vehicle. And then that woman did bring up to Brian a white van. And I know she said it's not running right now, but there's something they didn't just, I don't think there's a random traffic stop. I think they were looking for a certain vehicle.
And they pulled him over or had this traffic stop near the house as well. By the way, for anybody who doesn't know, Steve, you've been to Arizona. You've done searches in Arizona. We've been trying to give everybody an understanding of what the area looks like. I mean, even from something so small as when you look at Nancy's neighborhood and, what is the surveillance footage going to show? It is completely dark if you don't have cameras there, which is, by the way, I would say kind of a miracle that you even have some footage that identifies somebody. It's not obviously the best footage, but it's better than we have. Have you been to Rio Rico? Have you been to Tucson? What should we be thinking about in terms of the geography, the demographics, the complications that this may raise in an investigation?
Yeah, in fact, I just got back from a multi-day search in Arizona that has an element that involves Rio Rico, believe it or not. But so it's incredibly dark, but that actually in early days of a search can be an advantage because of thermal imaging and night vision. And I think that's why we got such clear footage of that guy coming to the front door. But it's, as far as searching goes, it's really not a super tough terrain because it's this kind of like scrub brush that's scattered around and everything. And, but they've been searching. There's some piece of evidence that they must have an idea somewhere around because we saw them in the septic tanks, probing rods and whatnot. And of course they would look for a body too, but I think they were also looking for other, physical evidence in particular, because even before that, when Brian a couple of days ago was doing a live shot and a helicopter started hovering low in the backyard, that, they're looking for something in particular. They've clearly got more information than they're giving.
And the New York Post, as I said earlier, reported the police were taking DNA samples from hired workers near Nancy's home, which is something you see in a lot of elderly cases where people who work on these properties, they see vulnerable individuals and try to exploit that in some way. I'm not saying that would happen here, but it is interesting. I just want to go back to something that you mentioned, and this is something that I talked about with John Bueller in the last hour. There is very specific identifying information there, the backpack, the gloves, the sweatshirt. And it was interesting because I had on Jake Green as well. If somebody were to commit a crime, would they just use materials they had in their possession, they had for so long, or would they say, you know what, I might get caught on a camera, I might be seen by an eyewitness, I'm going to buy completely new items. And if that's the case, then don't you go to the sales records? Like, for example, if that sweatshirt or that backpack was purchased at Walmart or Target, do you just go and look at the purchase receipts, the purchase history in all these locations? Is that what might be happening behind the scenes once this footage was released?
Yeah, and listen, there's not too many people in Tucson, Arizona, buying a full face mask like that. It's made for snow skiing and whatnot. So that's unusual. And listen, there is identifying factors. He's got a very distinctive upper lip and his eyebrows. I think somebody's going to be able to pick this guy out. And one of the things is, it seems like he went to all this trouble to conceal himself, but then he walks up and he's got to find something to cover the camera with. He didn't even think that through. So he goes and takes some flour or weeds out of the ground and uses that. So, and to be honest with you, I was looking through the footage and I think he poked a hole in his left glove when I did a freeze frame. So he might have even left DNA there. It's not a master criminal, but it does seem that he semi thought it through, but he's not very good at what he does.
Yeah, and that made me wonder whether or not this individual was familiar with that house, knew there was a camera there, because taking foliage and trying to obscure the camera seems like a level of not being very sophisticated. Arthur, I don't know if you have to go. I'll give you the floor if you need to leave, but I want to give you the final word. Again, we're in the very legally interesting area, precarious area, as they're executing a search warrant, gathering evidence. We're at a critical point in this investigation. I'll give you the final word on what you're looking at.
Well, they're going to try to be as careful as they can while they have all of this pressure on them. They have law enforcement has an enormous amount of pressure on them. They literally, come on, Jesse, all the cases you've covered, how many times is the President of the United States involved in the case?
Can't say that
right?
too many, no.
Right, so, so I feel for them on one hand, but on the other hand, you can't rush into things. Again, it's probably not gonna be legally necessary, but if that woman, Josephina, they can't just take her phone. They just can't be like, give me your phone, unless they are able to articulate to a judge at a hearing down the road why they had to do it right that moment, what caused it for her phone. Now, maybe Carlos, the guy who she said is in handcuffs, maybe they have a reason why they needed his phone immediately and they couldn't wait for a search warrant. But, he's in handcuffs. So this is all like Luigi Mangione stuff, right? Once they had him in handcuffs, did they need a warrant to get his backpack or didn't they, right? No, he can't touch the backpack. Why didn't they get a warrant? So, as I said, this is like a law school class we're in right now of all these different legal issues. But let's just hope it leads us to a conclusion where, the Guthrie family gets some relief.
I know, and Nancy has found safe. Look, I've been saying it all for the last 2 weeks. How they contain that crime scene, how they process evidence is very important, not only for the investigation, but a future criminal case if there's an arrest. Arthur, thank you so much for
Pleasure, man. You're
so
doing
generous.
a great job.
Really
so
appreciate
Brian
it.
did an outstanding job.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, we will be back. Okay, we're going to take a quick break here on NewsNation. Jesse Weber Live, continuing live coverage of the Nancy Guthrie case out of Arizona. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to our continued live coverage of the Nancy Guthrie investigation. This is a rapidly developing situation. I know I keep saying that, but right now, what are we waiting for? A search warrant being executed on the property of a subject who was detained in Rio Rico. This is around 60 miles south of Tucson, where Nancy Guthrie had allegedly been kidnapped. Brian Entin was, I will say, I think the first on the ground there, and actually spoke with the mother-in-law of that subject, the person who was detained. He has been identified, as far as the Josephina, his mother-in-law said, as Carlos Palazuelos. We're still trying to learn a little bit more information about him. We still don't understand exactly his connection to this case. Josephina basically indicated through her interview with Brian that he is not the person in that video that we keep showing that was released by the FBI, the person in the ski mask. There was nothing identifiable features that she said that's him. And she also said that he has, as far as she saw, no connection to Nancy Guthrie. But we're going to play a portion of that interview in a minute once we have it up. In the meantime, I want to bring in former homicide detective, Phil Waters, my good friend. Phil, thanks for staying up late, although I think you're in Hawaii or Texas. I don't even know where you are anymore. You're such a world traveler.
No, I'm in Texas.
Okay,
I'm in
good.
Texas.
Good.
So
thank you. I appreciate you staying up with me. This is a really interesting moment. I have to ask you, as we're talking about a place right near the border, this is revisiting questions about whether or not Nancy Guthrie could have been smuggled across the border. And if that is the case, you are dealing with an entirely different situation. Talk to me about if there's anything to that, considering what we're talking about right now and what they might be searching for in this house.
Well, I would tell you at this point, what we're seeing here is an amazing collaboration between local authorities and the FBI, bringing all their resources and assets that have brought us to this place. This is a result of just excellent detective work, going through all of the evidence that they have and leading them to where they are now, which is executing this search warrant. So whatever they found, whether it was a call to the tip line, whether it was a result of processing the scene, some attachment there, something that was left behind that brought them to this person, it has brought them to that point where they now feel comfortable enough that they have the probable cause to draft a search warrant and execute it on this resident. Now, being that close to the border, it does beg the question, was Ms. Guthrie transported across the border? And if that's the case, then I can tell you, then they will marshal the federal forces there in Mexico, and they will collaborate with them as well.
So let me ask you about that. How easy would it be to do that? Because you wonder whether or not her passport was taken with her. Probably unlikely, considering, her medication didn't appear to be taken with her as well. And just so everybody knows, Rio Rico doesn't have its own port of entry, but it's about 15 to 20 minutes away from this major crossing point, and provides both pedestrian and vehicle access. So it gives you an idea. It's one of Arizona's largest and most common border crossings. So the Rio Rico is right by there. How easy would it be to hypothetically smuggle Nancy Guthrie into another country? And just to be clear, I'm not saying that's what happened, but this is something we have to discuss, considering where Brian Entin is right now and where this search warrant's being executed.
Exactly. Well, look, the people, if we go with that premise that this is what has happened, then the folks that may have done this are going to be well versed in how to get people across the border illegally. They're not going to go through a checkpoint. Now, I would imagine that the FBI, that they put out border watches just for that possibility, but that's assuming that somebody goes through a legitimate checkpoint. There's all sorts of avenues, of course, to get across the border with being undetected. So if that's what's happened here, then that just goes to, I guess, the experience of if it is a kidnapping, and if it was an abduction and taken across the border, it goes to the level of criminality of the people that committed the act, if that's what happened.
I'm very confused about something. If I assume everything is true that Josefina had told Brian Entin, this is not somebody, and I talked about it with Arthur Aidala, just a witness to something, had information. If they're executing a search warrant, and he's not the person, right? This Carlos Palazuelos is not the person that was in that ring footage, or excuse me, that nest footage. What is the potential connection of him to this case? I mean, I know we're speculating here, but I'm trying to make sense of it.
Well, there's got to be some sort of affirmative link. I mean, they're not out drafting search warrants just because they need practice in drafting search warrants. So there's something in the chain of evidence here that has drawn them to this individual. And look, if you go back and look at the video and so forth and so on, just because somebody is saying, and not in an impartial way, oh, no, this is not the guy in the video, well, is perhaps he the person that maybe, if there's two people involved, is he the person that's inside the house while this guy's outside at the video?
So Phil, let me show you something, because to be clear, she said if I had my phone, if it wasn't taken by authorities, I would actually show you a picture of him. It's not him. And also, it seems like she was ready to let law enforcement go in, take a look. We have nothing to hide. Now, of course, this is her perspective. This is her narrative. And also, I've covered a million cases before where sometimes family members have no idea what somebody, a family member, including if they live in the house, are up to. I want to play, this is Brian Entin's interview earlier on with Josefina. This is the mother-in-law of this subject, Carlos, who is detained, and now they're searching the house. Take a look.
This is Josephina.
Yes.
This is her house, and the subject is her son-in-law.
Yeah,
is
my
that right?
son, yeah.
Tell me how this happened. Where was he when he was detained?
My daughter and him were, and the kids, my grandkids, were doing door dashing when they got stopped here, and I don't know what kind of questions they asked them. But when we got home, I wasn't at home. When we got home, we found out that they took my son out. They went inside, they busted the doors from my house. They went inside and took my son to the living room and had him handcuffed, and then got him outside. That's when the time that we got home, and we asked what was going on, and they couldn't say anything. And they said, and I asked him to have a search warrant to go in my house, and they said we don't need a search warrant. We could go do that if we want to. So I told them, yeah, I think you need a search warrant. Why did you break my door? You took my son the wrong way. I mean, you hurt him. His wrists were with the handcuffs.
Let me ask you, were you familiar with the Nancy Guthrie
No.
case? Had you seen that she was missing?
Like I told you, I saw it on Facebook, but since I don't know her, I didn't read what was going on. The story.
Did they take electronic devices at all? Did they take your phone?
I don't have anything. They took
your
my phone. They
took
took my phone, my husband's phone, my daughter's phone, my grandkid's phone, and my son-in-law's phone.
Let me show you these pictures really quick,
Mm-hmm.
Josephina, of, just give me a second, I gotta pull them up on my phone. These are the pictures from outside Nancy Guthrie's house.
Mm-hmm.
This is who they're looking for. Do the eyes look like your son-in-law at all?
No, not at all.
Do you see the mouth?
Yeah, no. He doesn't look at all.
Brian, can you ask what her son-in-law's
what's
name
his
is?
name?
It's Carlos. Carlos Palazuelos.
Sorry, what's his name?
Carlos.
Carlos.
Yes.
And what's his last name?
Palazuelos.
Okay.
I don't know, yeah. So
And does he work in Tucson? Would he ever be in Tucson?
he's in Tucson all week. He works delivering boxes for like UPS and he works with a company. And I told him you can call the company that he works there and verify that he's working. And
Is your daughter also detained?
no, they just let my daughter and my grandkids go.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Josefina.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the latest here, Jesse. They took her phone too.
Yeah,
her husband's phone,
and
her daughter's phone, and obviously her son-in-law's phone, and they are searching her house right now. So this is sort of an unfolding situation.
And I'll get into this with Arthur, the fact that they didn't have a search warrant, according to her. Do you know where Carlos is right now, Brian?
Do we know where Carlos is right now?
No, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with him. They took my phone. I can't reach with nobody.
Yeah, we think he's being questioned. But
Yeah, they already asked us a lot of questions about him. We told, like I said, I have nothing to hide. You can go in my house. You can search anything you want. There's nothing to hide. I don't know the lady. I don't know about the lady. I saw her on Facebook, but like I told you.
Was he ever violent? Any violence with Carlos?
No, he's a good guy.
Criminal history that you know of?
None of it.
No? Okay.
Is he from Tucson?
Brian,
Yeah, so I mean that's sort of the situation. She's obviously in shock. Yeah.
Did you show her photos of the person outside of Nancy Guthrie's house? The images, the mask, the backpack. Did she identify any of those items of clothing? And nothing. She doesn't see anything in that.
I did, and let me show you. Again. Have you seen these photos?
Yeah, the detective showed it to me right now.
And the backpack? Does the backpack
He
look
doesn't
familiar?
have a backpack. He doesn't wear backpacks. He doesn't like either that. I don't know what gloves or something like that. I don't know
Yeah,
what they're.
gloves.
No.
You see the boots?
Yeah.
Let me get you a
Oh, no,
closer
he doesn't.
picture. You see this here? Look at look at the eyebrows. The eyebrows are very specific. You see how they're very manicured?
No, that's not him. Nope. I can assure you it's not him.
Okay.
I can assure you. Like I told you, if I had my phone, I would show you a picture of him.
Okay.
I can show you.
Yeah, she wants to show me a picture, but she doesn't have her phone. But she seems very sure. I mean, it's hard to tell with the mask, but but we've said if you knew the person, you would be able to recognize them.
But Brian, if you don't mind asking her, does she know where he was January 31st, February 1st?
Do you know where he was January 31st? You know when this happened? It would have been last Saturday night.
Well, he works from Monday through Friday. He's home Friday. He stays home Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Goes back to work on Monday. So on the weekends, he stays at my house. He doesn't go nowhere. He stays where.
So was he at your house last
he
Saturday?
was. Yeah, he was here at my house.
Are you positive?
Yeah, I'm positive. he was here at my house.
Because this would have happened late Saturday and early into Sunday morning, like around 2 a.m. on Sunday.
Oh, no, he's always here for his kids on the weekend.
Could he have left in the night?
Oh, no.
No.
I'm pretty sure. He has his van that work. He uses the van that's outside.
A van?
A van. It's broken. It's not working.
How long has it been broken?
Well, it broke down on Friday afternoon.
This past Friday?
Yeah, this Friday, huh?
So a couple of days ago, Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the van was pulled here, and he's been here. He's been going with my daughter door dashing with the kids, his kids, and he's been home.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're sure he was home last weekend?
Yeah, he's
in
been
the middle
home.
of the night?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So you heard that? That's what she said, Jesse. So she says she says that he was home. She can't look at it on her phone. I mean, they took all the electronic devices, which would make sense. And so she's just sort of waiting out here to see when she's going to be able to go back to the house.
And Brian, I mean, excellent job asking questions about this. I'm sorry, I didn't know if she was saying anything else, Brian. I apologize.
No, she was just saying what were you saying? They told you to go stay somewhere else tonight?
Yeah, maybe to stay somewhere else because I'm not going home to my house anymore.
And I should also let you know that it was reported that there was a suspicious white van that was in that neighborhood, Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood, before her disappearance. What did you take away from that interview, Phil?
Well, you have a mother or mother-in-law here that is not what we would call an impartial witness. I certainly question her rendering of "we don't need a search warrant, we can do anything we want" kind of statement. I would question that greatly. They executed a search warrant, and they're going to leave a list of everything taken out of that house. So they're going to know exactly what was taken from the home, what evidence was gathered there at that time in terms of where her son was and the son-in-law and that kind of thing. Yeah. Again, we're talking about a mother who's upset about something that's happened.
Phil, it's actually great timing to have you because I know you've interviewed a number of people. When she's talking about whether or not Carlos matches the description of that individual, when she's talking about where his whereabouts were, his alibi, did you believe her?
I think that was an accurate statement. I don't think she was putting on there, although she did say it. It was rather, the way I took it is that it was rather defensive the way she was saying, "Oh, no, that's not him. No. Okay. And Brian says, "Look at his eyebrows. No, that's not him."
Yeah.
So yeah, again, we're talking about somebody who's upset, and they're trying to make a story, an alibi sort of.
Well, I'll tell you, it's a very distressing situation. This is in the almost in the middle of the night that this is happening. So obviously, it's understandable. Phil, stay with us. We're going to continue to cover what is happening on the ground in Rio Rico as the authorities execute this search warrant of a subject in connection with the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Stay with us here on NewsNation. We'll be back. Okay, so there is an active situation happening right now in Rio Rico, Arizona, as we can continue to cover the investigation of Nancy Guthrie. A subject has been detained. A search warrant is being executed on that property belonging to this subject. A little while ago, Brian Entin, who is live on the ground, he's going to come back with us as soon as this operation is underway, had the opportunity to interview the mother-in-law of this subject and basically indicated where his whereabouts were on January 31st, February 1st, denied that he was the person in that surveillance footage, the Nest camera footage from Nancy Guthrie's doorbell camera. But we're still trying to make sense of what might be happening, who this person is, their connection to the Nancy Guthrie disappearance. I want to bring in right now a retired FBI agent and NewsNation law and justice contributor, Jennifer Coffindaffer. Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time. There was something really interesting about when she talks about how Carlos Palazuelos has this van. There was reporting of an unmarked, suspicious white van that was seen in Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood in the days before she disappeared. Pursuant to this search warrant, do they have the ability to not only search the house, but also the van?
It depends what is specified in that search warrant. Certainly, if they included the curtilage and if that van is on the curtilage, absolutely. But
by the way, for anybody who doesn't know, what is curtilage? It's a word I think I've said once in my life.
Oh, really? It's such a word that's used by law enforcement. It means the surrounding area around the house.
Good.
If that van is, say, parked on the street, that's a different situation. That's not the curtilage. And second of all, if a van is on that property, they're going to want to get a second search warrant. Just like if there's a safe, you're going to want a separate search warrant. Just like the electronics seized, they're going to seize them, but they'll likely get separate search warrants just in the abundance of caution, Jesse.
Talk to me about what we can expect. They say this operation might last several hours. I don't know what they're looking for. So this was pursuant to a traffic stop of some kind. It appears to be near where the house is. This is 60 miles away from Tucson, right? So from where Nancy Guthrie's house was. This is very, very strange. What are you looking out for? What can we expect as this operation continues?
Well, a couple things, Jesse. First of all, you mentioned it, that van. That's immediately what tweaked my curiosity when she mentioned that. But the other item is, look, nobody's saying he was on the camera. He could have provided the weapon. He could have been someplace off camera. He could have provided the vehicle used in this, because I guarantee you that person just didn't carry her off into the distance with no vehicle. There could be so many reasons that he could be connected. How about the ransom note? So there's so many possibilities. Typically in this, you start with the tangential players and you move your way to how did they connect to the case. I think that's what we have here.
Are you concerned about an international element to this? As I said, Rio Rico doesn't have its own port of entry, but it's located just north of this major, easy-to-use entry. It's about 15 to 20 minutes away. Are you concerned about whether or not we are dealing with a situation, whether Nancy Guthrie was perhaps taken, smuggled out of this country?
100% concerned with that. Look, in 2019, I believe it was, I highlighted this case. There was a case of a businessman in Tucson. He was taken, thrown in the trunk of a car, driven across the border to Mexico, and kidnapped. And a ransom was asked for. In that case, actually, the FBI and local authorities ended up finding him, rescuing him, and 3 abductors were arrested. So, Jesse, this does happen, and that case really kind of reminded me from this very early on. I posted about that.
All right, let's see what happens, okay? So Brian Entin is on the ground. We are waiting to see this being executed. There's a massive law enforcement presence outside this property. Stay with us here on NewsNation. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back live and see what happens next in the continuing search for 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. Okay, so authorities are on the ground in Rio Rico, Arizona. It's about 60 miles from Tucson, where Nancy Guthrie had disappeared. It appears that a subject has been detained. There is reporting that both the home of this subject and a car are being searched by authorities. Brian Entin, who I'm about to go to in a minute, is live on the ground, had interviewed this subject's mother-in-law. We believe the subject is identified as Carlos Palazuelos. We are not sure what his connection is to this investigation. And one other thing to note, I mentioned that his mother-in-law, Josefina, had said that he has this van that kind of broke down. And I mentioned that there were earlier reports about how there was a van in Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood that was spotted by neighbors. We believe that was a white van. This is being reported a gray SUV, but I want to go to Brian Entin right now, who's live on the ground. So Brian, first of all, what are you seeing right now? Has there been a mobilization in terms of this search warrant being executed? And B, if you go on social media right now, there's a lot of talk about whether there are any sightings of Nancy Guthrie where you are. So tell me if there's any indication that Nancy is there, and what are you seeing in terms of this search warrant?
Yeah, unfortunately, there is no indication that Nancy Guthrie is here, and my sources have been saying for the last couple of hours that while they are hopeful that this subject will lead to progress in the case, they have not located Nancy Guthrie at this point. In terms of the search warrant, it is ongoing right now, Jesse. No one has come out. I mean, they've got the whole road closed off, but none of the FBI. Actually, let me look really quick. Is that enough? No, that's not an FBI van. Actually, maybe it is. Yes, that is actually an FBI van now leaving behind me. That's one of the same evidence vans that I believe I saw earlier this week out at Nancy Guthrie. So there is now a van leaving, which I don't know if that means perhaps they're starting to wrap things up. The woman who owns the house, Josephina, who we talked to, last hour, said that it was a small house, so maybe this isn't going to take a long time. They also took all of their electronic devices. And like I said, the road is closed, so it's hard for us to see kind of what progress they're making right now, Jesse.
Did you, and by the way, it's interesting that the FBI is officially there because their resources, their tools, their expertise, not only in questioning these individuals, but how they're able to collect evidence is very important in a critical time of this investigation. Did you learn anything a little bit more about Carlos Palazuelos or anything that they may be looking for with respect to this search? I mean, what were the circumstances surrounding the traffic stop? Have you learned any more details about Carlos or what they're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, we know that it was a traffic stop not far from here, that he was with his wife doing Uber Eats or DoorDash when the investigators pulled him over. It makes me wonder if he was under some kind of FBI surveillance and that something came through where they finally got what they needed to make the stop and bring him in for questioning. The other interesting thing is I was just talking to one of my FBI sources who was saying that, they're calling him a subject, but in FBI lingo, subject is sometimes suspect. They don't always call suspects, they call them subjects sometimes. So he was very confident in this perhaps panning out. I mean, the fact that he was telling me this guy was probably under surveillance, the fact that it was a traffic stop, he was probably under surveillance, and they don't just they had to get a warrant probably for this search warrant, obviously. So there's got to be something they know behind the scenes besides just thinking that this guy is somehow connected.
And we heard Arthur Idell. I mean, before Josephina said that they didn't even have a search warrant. That's her narrative of it. But obviously, if they are going to these lengths, it's not just simply a witness that has information about the case. There's something more going on here. Do you have any idea about how long this is going to go on or what we can expect next in terms of the scene?
Yeah, I wish we knew what to expect next with this whole thing because it's just there's been so many twists and turns. But we know that they told the family not to expect to come back into the house tonight and to find someplace else to sleep. So it could be a long night. Like I said, I did just see the one FBI evidence truck leave, but that doesn't mean that there's not more down there. Right. They've already been here for 2 or 3 hours, so it could go on all night long. At least that's what they told the family that lives there.
And that signifies to me you could have one van who leaves, right? One FBI van, maybe collect digital evidence, take it out for processing, and then a separate team comes in to look for forensic material and whether or not there's any other, data in the house or any other evidence in the house, which could take a longer period of time. Real quick, we got about a minute left. Talk to us about this area you're in. It's close to the border, right? What should we know about it?
Yeah, we're just a couple of miles from the border. We're about an hour from Tucson. She said, the subject's mother-in-law said that he actually works in Tucson, so it seems a lot of people here commute to Tucson for work. We're just along the main highway here. It's very, sort of like where Nancy lives. It's very, very dark out here. There's no street lights or anything like that. So remote, I was just thinking to myself, I mean, this is the last place I sort of expected to end up with this Nancy Guthrie search. We saw all the search happening at Annie's house, and, to be this close to the border now, I don't think any of us expected this to happen tonight.
Yeah, especially on the heels of all that footage coming out of the masked person outside of Nancy's house. And to be clear, when you interviewed that mother-in-law, she said it's not him. It's not Carlos. Listen, Brian, amazing reporting. I don't say amazing reporting tonight. This company is lucky to have you. So thank you so much for taking the time. We're going to continue to follow what is happening through your reporting. We'll take a quick break here on NewsNation. When we come back, I want to get some final thoughts from Steve Fisher, private investigator who's been looking into this case. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to our continued live coverage of the Nancy Guthrie investigation as this search warrant is being executed at a house at Rio Rico. There is a subject that was detained by law enforcement pursuant to a traffic stop. Carlos Palazuelos is what has been identified as the person who's been identified, basically through his mother-in-law, who spoke to Brian Entin. We're waiting to learn more details about this. Before we wrap things up, I want to bring on Steve Fisher again, a private investigator who's been looking into this case, has been very active on social media about it. One of the things that I want to know, Steve, is what can we expect from the interview of Carlos or Josefina or anybody in that house?
Well, it'll be interesting to. I mean, they did. Pima County did say in their news release that they were actually interviewing him, so it sounds like maybe he was talking. The mom's statement seems very compelling, but she said that he was pulled over while they were door dashing, but I just watched her give another interview where she says they crashed through the doors and took him while he was playing Nintendo. So I'm not really sure why there's conflicting stories already. But yeah, it'd be a really, listen, they have a reason that they're there, as everybody seems to agree. And something has brought them there. The white van, I think, is curious too, because when Brian asked about Friday, I think she was talking about, not necessarily this last Friday, so I don't know if.
Yeah, she basically said he works Monday through Friday. He's home on the weekends. Right. But, there was a whole question about whether the van was broken down and what was that. I mean, Brian I said, ask about January 31st, February 1st. And she goes, no, right. He would have been there. And she has no reason to believe that he would have left the house.
Yeah. So this would be, and another thing is because they told her to expect this to be an all night thing and to find another place. Well, as search warrants are very defined. What they can, judge gives them, signs off on search warrant, certain things they can go look for. They can't just go on and try and find, whatever may link it. So that makes me think that they think there's bioevidence there. And that's why they're bringing teams in that are going to take them a long time to process, which means they possibly think that she may have been there at some point, So if it's going to be an all-night thing, I think that they're processing for bioevidence.
I thought the exact same thing. Brian had said that there was an FBI van that was moving away from the scene. Maybe that's because they collected digital evidence, but to collect for forensic material, DNA, fingerprints, it will take quite some time. I have to ask you again, this is all on the heels of that surveillance footage outside of Nancy Guthrie's house. Yeah. How many people do you think are able to actually identify that person, whether it's from the still images, the clothing, the backpack? It is interesting that you're seeing this person being detained right after that footage came out. So what can we expect tomorrow?
I think that, I've looked him up. He has ties to that area, Rio Rico. I think he's has lived there a very long time. And I think people that, he's very distinctive, even though you can't see that many features. Even just the gait, the way they walk, you can tell it's somebody. Listen, you go to a Halloween party and stuff, you can tell it's a friend of yours just by the way they mannerisms and stuff. Somebody's going to know who this is, and I'll bet you they're getting flooded with tips right now. And that's probably what led them, to what they're doing right now.
Well, look, there's still a lot of missing pieces in this. We are going to continue to follow it. Steve Fisher, can't thank you enough for coming on at such a late hour to talk about this. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
And everyone, thank you for joining us here on our live coverage of this rapidly developing situation in the Nancy Guthrie case. We are going to sign off now. Morning in America is going to pick back up at 6 a.m. Eastern. But I want you to go check out Brian Entin's social media because if there is a search warrant being executed and more information is coming out, that is where you're going to check. Thank you so much for joining us here on Jesse Weber Live. I'll see you tomorrow night, everybody. Thanks so much.